Curt Cignetti, the Indiana head coach, came out today and said, and I quote, in reference to canceling the game, the home and home between Indiana and Virginia, he stated at Big Ten Media Days, we figured that we'd adopt the SEC schedule philosophy. It goes based off of what we just talked about, Joe. Why are you taking shots at the SEC? Why does this keep happening? And then, Joe, first off, Indiana has no business talking about scheduling and difficulty of scheduling, and then he comes out there and does that. But what's your reaction to this?
Okay, his full quote, I think, was a lot deeper than this. I think that Signetti is an endless shit talker, so he had to take it upon himself to take a shot, and it's a baseless claim that he had, that he was stating, we want to take the SEC scheduling model of scheduling G5 and FCS opponents in non-conference. And we've talked about plenty on the show that we recognize that the Big Ten, their in-conference scheduling is a lot weaker than the SEC in-conference scheduling. I don't want to hear the pushback from people in the comments. You have illustrated effectively that many times the middle of the pack in the SEC is far stouter than the middle of the pack to the back end of the Big Ten. There's no debate. A team like Northwestern, where they finished, would have lost to the likes of Vanderbilt. But there were some things that I thought that caught my attention, not necessarily that I agreed with from Signetti.
Okay.
I thought that he was far more direct and clear about delivering the vision for what the Big Ten wants to do with the 16-team playoff. Mm-hmm. He did a better job than what Petiti did.
I agree.
One of the quotes that he said is, we wouldn't be opposed to Big Ten SEC regular season games every year. We need to standardize the schedule across the board if we want to have objective criteria for who should be in the playoffs and who shouldn't. And we need to take the decision-making off the committee to some degree. That is the one thing that he said that I was like, okay, I can get behind this one. The rest of the stuff, he's getting way ahead of himself. But I have repeatedly said, we need a standardized scheduling model for non-conference. We need a standardized criteria for voting in the committee that is not just humans. And you mentioned earlier, the reason why we need the math is because we need an unbiased decision maker that is not swayed by national opinions that are driving how we feel about certain teams and how we don't feel about if certain teams belong in the mix. So I agree with the way that he framed this last point. The rest of it, no, I can't get behind him trying to claim that the SEC is afraid of competition. That's a bullshit narrative that keeps getting brought up over and over again.
I got to be honest, he's starting to come off as a cocky asshole.
Well, he is a cocky asshole.
He is. Google me the thing that he said before Notre Dame. We're going to go in there. We're going to run it up. I mean, like, Joe, Notre Dame you went into Notre Dame and they waxed your ass. I don't know how else to put it. And then Joe, at the end of the game, he talking about them being aggressive. You kept punting the football. Joe, they're punting the football down 20 in the fourth quarter. You ain't being aggressive. I mean, you get to a place where, Joe, everything that it's all fine and dandy about schedule competence or schedule equality. We're not going to get that. Sorry, we're not going to get it. Okay, like everybody keeps talking about schedule equality. Newsflash to coaches, commissioners, and everybody out there, media included. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. Joe, last year, Tennessee was the team that had the worst strength of schedule that made the playoffs for the SEC. Okay, think about this. They played Georgia and Bama. Would Indiana want to switch schedules with Tennessee? I mean, would they? By the way, they played Ohio State too. And for what it's worth, Tennessee lost the SEC Player of the Year and kept battling when you just kept getting your shit pushed in. The bottom line is here for me, I think I like Curt Cignetti as a coach. I think he's done some good things for Indiana. You, as the Big Ten, keep going out there unprompted, taking shots at the SEC in their schedule. Well, I'm really glad that he brought up the SEC schedule, Joe, because here's the truth. Here's what the SEC has upcoming this season. Are you ready? Texas has Ohio State on the road. LSU has Clemson at Clemson on the road. Bama goes to Florida State. South Carolina goes on the road to Virginia Tech. Missouri goes on the road to Kansas. Oklahoma has Michigan. South Carolina versus Clemson. A&M versus Notre Dame. Oh, by the way, here comes Notre Dame again. Arkansas versus Notre Dame. Florida versus Miami. Florida versus Florida State. Don't you dare come in here and start telling me that this conference does not play teams outside their conference more than you do, because it doesn't exist. There's a false narrative that keeps being pushed. They have more games outside the conference than you do. They do. So you keep talking about 9-game conference schedule. You keep talking about going outside the conference. They are going outside the conference and playing because they're not backing down. Oh, by the way, Bama, LSU, who else? Texas a year ago played multiple Big Ten teams. They all did. They didn't back down. You look so soft when you go out there and you start canceling games. Read the room. Read the room. Everybody talked about your schedule a year ago, and you come out here taking a shot at the SEC. Newsflash, the way that you got your start was because a dude in the SEC hired your ass. So you want to keep coming. Joe, all today was Signetti included. Why do you have – if you're the best conference, why do you have to take a shot? Everything that he said after that is fine and dandy, and we can agree. The problem is it's not the headline. It's not helping anybody when you keep going out there taking shots. Please explain to me the SEC going out there and playing 14 games outside of conference. 2 of them going up against Notre Dame. 2 of them. Florida, South Carolina, both go outside of the SEC twice. So, Joe, I got to be real with you, man. It's starting to get to a place where you think that you got the gun because you, as a conference, won 2 national titles, and yet the SEC isn't really going after you like that. What did they say last week? There's not one. Please find me a comment from the commissioner or its coaches talking about, outside of Kirby, outside of saying, hey, who would you take? They're not going after you. The scheduling part of this is bullshit. Again, you got Texas going on the road to the defending national title winner. And you're trying to tell me that they're going out there not having tougher schedules than you.
Well, plain and simple, the thing that just bothers me the most about this is that the whole last month of the season, everybody was talking about how weak Indiana's schedule was. And the main talking point was how they played the back end of the Big Ten, that they played a really weak Big Ten schedule. That was what everybody was complaining about. No one was complaining about who you played in the non-conference. Everybody was pointing out, well, the record's so good because they're dominating all of the bad teams in the Big Ten. And I've been an Indiana supporter. I've been a Curt Cignetti supporter. I think this team is going to be great this upcoming year. I think that they're going to be challenged a little bit more than they were last year, and they'll be able to actually prove themselves in a more worthy manner because I believe they play Illinois this year. They're going to get to square off with some actual competitive teams other than just one game against Ohio State. But you got to have some situational awareness. This has been a weird offseason for people talking crap when they're not supposed to be.
No, yes.
I like Signetti. I really like his personality more than you do. But this is not the way to use it. It's not. You make yourself look silly, and you make the Big Ten look silly when you say stuff like this.
First off, I don't mind the personality. I don't mind the chippiness. What I mind is you legitimately, and I can pull this back up if I need to, but actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm actually just going to do it. You get to a place where when I can go just on a Google search, a basic Google search, and look at your strength of schedule from last year. Joe, guess what it was? We've talked about this at extreme nauseum. Joe, they were in the 70s of strength of schedule. And you're coming out here taking shots at Hoomst. Like, again, look, I do not praise Notre Dame, and I get trolled by not praising them. What did Notre Dame do? Bring, bring. Hey, Miami, what up? Catholics versus convicts. Bring, bring. A&M. Let's do it. Bring, Arkansas. What up? They don't back down from nothing. And yet I got to sit here and hear a team that, quite honestly, did not deserve to be in the playoff. Oh, their record is really good. They beat one team above 500 last year. And you're trying to tell me, and you want to try to come in here and convince me that Bama going 4-1 against the top 25 is equal? Please, dear God, stop. You're making an ass of yourself. And Joe, I'm just going to tell you, you better back this shit up on the field. You start talking all this shit, you better start backing it up.
I think that they're going to be fine on the field. I
think Indiana is going to be fine on the field.
We did a whole preview. We broke them down. We talked about them. I like
Fernando. I love their quarterback. But, Joe, their offensive line got their shit pushed in.
They completely reworked. Okay, I think you're misdirecting your anger here a little bit. We spent a good amount of time talking very highly about Indiana. This Indiana team this year could very well be better than it was last year.
No, but know your place. Know your place in the sense of you're canceling. Joe, here's their first 3 games of the season. You ready? They got Old Dominion, they got Kennesaw State, and they have Indiana State. Real murderer's row here. And you're talking about SEC schedule to me when I just listed things off to you about what Arkansas and what LSU and what Texas and what Florida and what these other teams are doing, and you don't have teams above 500 or that are worth a damn. Joe, think about this. I went ahead and looked it up. The first 3 teams that you faced in the beginning of the year combined didn't have 10 wins.
I don't have nothing to add to that.
Because, Joe, when facts are presented, there is nothing to add.
Okay. Where I can't get fully with you, though, I don't think that has anything to do with the quality of the team that they have. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I think that he's still a good coach. I think that the team that they put together last year, the team that they have coming in this year, they're all good. Doesn't
Sounds good.
Crap.
Sounds good. Can you beat more than one top 25 opponent, please? Before you come out here talking shit. Well, Joe, hold on very quickly. We came out here talking shit about Vandy and Diego Pavia and about what they did a season ago.
Hold on. 7-6.
Sounds good. They're 3 points away from beating Texas, and they beat Alabama, and they are a touchdown away from beating LSU. Those games are closer. Joe, they beat teams that were above 500.
Okay, Indiana's still much better than Vanderbilt.
Sure, but at least Vandy went out there and faced and beat and came within striking distance of teams that were actually relevant.
Okay, well now we somehow have managed to revert back to where a lot of our fights have stemmed from, which is just because you play a hard schedule does not mean your team is better. That's where like I'm already starting to get like a little
and Vandy's with this. It's a bad answer. Okay, let's go this. What about South Carolina?
So South Carolina had a good record. They were 9-3.
Record in this instance means nothing to me when you're facing off against more brutal opponents every week.
The problem is, and I'm reverting it back to one of Cignetti's comments. The problem is, yes, we can use strength of schedule as a metric to compare teams. But when you don't beat the teams on your schedule and you have largely different records, one team's 11-1, one team's 9-3. I'm not saying that there is a right answer that the 11-1 team is automatically better than the 9-3 team. But when we're trying to develop resumes, it becomes really freaking hard. It becomes really hard to compare the two teams. I don't think that it is an opinion-based argument to determine which team is better. There is no clear-cut way to prove which is the better team. And they square off on the field and they play one another.
Yes, there is. Bama went 4-1 against the top 25. Yes, there is. Is there not? Joe, one team didn't beat.
Wait. But we don't. I'm not. I'm so afraid to say this because I know this is going to set you off. We don't know for certain that Indiana, if they had faced
good heavens,
5 top 25 teams, that they wouldn't have gone 4-1 in that same stretch. We don't know that. I'm not saying that it's concludable that they would have gone 4-1 and would have been as good as Alabama. But the problem is because of the schedule that they played, we don't have evidence to form the opinion on if they would have done it or not.
Okay, and you know what happens? All right, fine. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But how about this? You can't run out there. You cannot run out there and say that we need schedule equality and then start canceling P4 outside opponents.
That is where I'm at with this, where I agree with you, and I think where this is misguided because the opening statement that Cignetti has does not align with the ending statement that I brought up at the very, very beginning of the segment. We need to get on the same page, and I will continue to hammer home that there needs to be a non-conference schedule requirement that is met. There needs to be some sort of system that is put together to qualify for the college football playoff. And at the end of the day, I'm going to keep repeating this. It sucks for the G5. It sucks for the FCS. The only way that we get to competitive schedule comparisons, and this becomes a lot more clear of like, okay, well, this team played that team, blah, 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 let's compare these things, is if we could just remove. You should have to only play Power 4 teams. I will keep standing by that. You don't do that in the NFL. You don't get to schedule UFL teams.
Yeah, but that, again, Minnesota can go 14-2, actually 15-2, and also be a wild card team. So I don't even think the NFL's model is completely right either.
No, I'm not. But I'm not saying that the way that the NFL doing it is correct. I'm merely pointing out that it is an old tradition, I guess. It's an old part of college football. If there's one thing that I would gladly remove is these unnecessary exhibition games. If you need an exhibition game, schedule it during fall camp, play an opponent, a local opponent. That is when those games should be happening.
They already shut that down with Deion, remember? Deion tried it.
This is what that should have been allowed. That shit should have been allowed, and we should only have 12 Power 4 opponents. All of these arguments and debates and the yelling that we have from either conference or any conference that wants to talk shit becomes a lot harder when everybody's playing all Power 4 opponents.
No doubt.
But nobody will say yes to that. The SEC won't, because they will argue that their non-conference is too hard.
Hold on.
The Big Ten will say no.
That's not true. That's not true. I can give you 3 teams right now that only play one non-Power 5 opponent, Power 4 opponent. Look at Florida. Look at South Carolina. Look at LSU. Texas does have 2.
Wait.
LSU played USC, UCLA last year, in the beginning of the season. Then they had 8 conference games, so they played 2. All right, that's fair. South Carolina had Clemson at the end of the year, and look at Florida. They got Miami, and they got Florida State. So, no. I mean, there are teams in the SEC that actually are doing this. By the way, Bama goes and plays Wisconsin. Like,
wait. But they're not doing this. They're playing 10 Power 4 opponents, and then they're scheduling two G5, FCS, whatever it is.
Some of them are, yes.
I doubt that you could convince a single SEC team to agree to play 12 Power 4 opponents. I think that
they did it during COVID. I mean,
well, they only played in
right,
and we all know how much of a shit show that was. All right, we should probably talk about Lashley.
All right.